Mrs. Thomas's Common Core Math videos. This is lesson 8. We're going to be solving algebraic equations using the tiles, and the equations are going to contain multiplication. In previous videos, we've had numbers added to variables. We've had numbers subtracted from variables. We've had variables subtracted from numbers. Now we're going to deal with numbers multiplied times variables. Now remember from earlier videos, hopefully you've watched the earlier videos, that we think of multiplication as groups of. So if I want to model 3x equals 6, this is 3 times x equals 6, or 3 groups of x is exactly the same thing as 6. So let me make my line so I can see the two sides of my equation. 3 groups of x means 3 x's is equal to 6, so that's 6 ones. All right, 3 x's equal to 6 ones. And do you remember our goal? Our goal is to get 1 x by itself. In past videos, when we had numbers, when we had ones over here, we added the opposite to the ones to make them equal 0. Adding isn't going to help us here. Because adding, we always have to add to both sides, right? I don't want any x's showing up over here. I just want to get rid of all but 1 x. So can you see what we need to do? I'll give you a hint. This is multiplication, right? 3 times x. We want to undo multiplication with its inverse. I think most of you know the inverse to multiplication is division. So if I have 3 groups of x and I only want 1 group of x, I'm going to divide, and I'm using that bar to show division. I'm going to divide what I have into 3 groups. And if I divide this side by 3, I'm going to divide this side by 3. So I'm going to take what I have. I'm going to make 3 groups here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to pass it out. And can you see that in each group I have 1 x? So if I have a number multiplied times x, I can undo that and get the x by itself by using the inverse operator to multiplication, which is division. Same thing over here. I divided by 3. So I take what I have and I pass it out into 3 groups. And each group has 2 ones in it. Remember, when you divide, you want what's in each group. So 1x is equal to 2 ones. X equals 2. Here's another equation. We've got 2x is equal to 10. So 2 groups of x is equal to 10 negative ones. Remember my goal. I want 1x left on this side of the equal sign. So I'm going to do the inverse of multiplying by 2. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Remember, even when we're multiplying or dividing or adding, we always do exactly the same thing to both sides. I divided 2 on this side, so I divided 2 on this side. Exactly the same. When I divide this by 2, I break it into 2 groups. Each group has 1 x in it. When I divide on this side, I break it into 2 groups. Each group has 5 negative ones in it. So my answer is x equals negative 5. Okay, here we have 9 equals negative 3x. Negative 3x is the opposite negative of 3 groups of x. So I have 3 negative x's. That's what this is. Over here, I have 9 positive ones, and that's what's right there. I drew a line through my equal sign so I can clearly see the 2 sides that I'm going to do exactly the same thing to, right? I have 3 negative x's. The first thing I'm going to do is try and get just 1 negative x. And then I'll worry about the fact that I have negative x's when I'd really prefer positive x's. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3, right? So then I can split what I have into 3 groups. And I can split what I have on the other side into 3 groups, doing exactly the same thing to both sides. And I can see that in each group, on this side, I have 1 negative x, and on this side, I have 3 positive ones, right? So I know that negative x equals positive 3, but I'm not done until I have a positive x. To get a positive x, I'm just going to take the opposite. The opposite of a negative x is a positive x. And if I take the opposite of this side, I'm going to take the opposite of this side. The opposite of 3 positive ones is 3 negative ones. So my answer is x is equal to negative 3. Here's one for you to try. 2x is equal to 8. Please don't take the shortcut and do guess and check. Work it out with the algebra tile so you really understand how this works. We're going to get more complicated in just a little bit. All right, did you set it up like this? With 2 x's on one side and 8 positive ones on the other? Did you say I've got 2 positive x's, but I only want 1? I'll do the inverse of multiplying by 2, and I'll divide both sides by 2. When I divide this into 2 groups, each group has 1 x in it. When I divide this into 2 groups, each group has 4 ones. So x is equal to 4. A little bit trickier. 10 is equal to negative 5x. Please pause the video, give it a try, start it back up when you're done. All right, did you put 5 negative x's on one side and 10 positive ones on the other? Hopefully you're looking at this side, because this is the side with your variable, and saying, well, I've got 5 groups of x, but I really only want 1 group. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. When I divide these into 5 groups, each group ends up with just 1 negative x in it. When I divide this into 5 groups, each group ends up with 2 positive ones in it. So I get negative x on this side is equal to positive 2 on this side. Don't stop here. We don't want to know what negative x is. You have to go that extra step and take the opposite. I want the opposite of negative x. I want a positive x. So I'm going to take the opposite of positive 2, and that's going to give me a negative 2. So x equals negative 2. Give this one a try. Pause the video, do it yourself, see what you get. 2 negative x's on this side is equal to 4 negative 1's on this side. To get 1x by itself, we're going to do the inverse of multiplying by 2. We're going to divide. When I divide this into 2 groups, each group has 1 x in it. When I divide my 1's into 2 groups, each group has 2 negative 1's in it. So I end up with 1 negative x being equal to 2 negative 1's. Again, don't leave a negative x. You need your answer to be a positive variable. So I'm going to take the opposite of negative x by flipping it over, and the opposite of negative 2 by flipping those over. All right? There's a shortcut here. You probably have seen it before, and it's a pretty good shortcut. I can't show it with the algebra tiles, but if you're not using algebra tiles, you could divide both sides by negative 2, cutting out that last step. A negative 2x divided by a negative 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. A negative divided by a negative is positive, so I get 1 positive x. Negative 4 divided by negative 2, well, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. That's my shortcut. Here's one that you can't really use the algebra tiles for. The numbers are too big. I want you to give it a try. What do we do when we can't use our algebra tiles? Can we still think about them? Give it a try. All right. I drew a line down the middle. I can keep that even if I'm not using my tiles. And I find my variable. It's over here, the x. I've got 3 groups of negative x, and I've got 105 positive ones. I'm going to do the inverse of multiplying by 3. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. On this side, when I divide these 3 negative x's into 3 groups, I'm going to end up with 1 negative x in each group. And on this side, 3 into 105. Let's do that real quick. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 gives me 9. And there's 1 left over. I'm going to bring down the 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times. So this is a positive 35. Remember, you're not done. Since I want a positive x, I'm going to take the opposite of both sides. And I'm going to get positive x is equal to negative 35.